What am I doing? Oh, we do need an intro, don't we? All right, hello everyone. Welcome to my very first YouTube video. This is much harder than I thought it was going to be already at the top, but I'll do my best here. My name is Sarah, and this is the first of many videos. A little bit about me. By day, I am in the wine industry. I work on a small team making wine, mostly estate vineyard stuff. That means we grow on fruit. But I've been a home winemaker for past 5 years. And that started my very first time I wanted to make wine, which was 2015. I've always wanted to make a video about this, but you know, it's hard to just get going. So figured there's no time better than today. So I figured just go for it. So before I dive into kind of my first series I want to do with this channel, I want to talk a little bit about some home wines I've made in the past. I have been doing this for about 5 years, and since my very first harvest of winemaking. And here I have some examples. So I've made mostly white wines made with red grapes, so mostly Pinot Noir. I work in the Willamette Valley, and that's where most of my food comes from. It is a world-renowned region. I will say that, you know, some people haven't heard of it if they're not in the industry, but we're getting well known. So for example, a couple years ago, I made this. It's a white Pinot Noir, hand-pressed in my backyard. I did everything at home. And it's really, really refreshing and crisp. I mean, it's definitely more of a white wine than a red wine, and it's a. So I want to, this year, make a pet nat. And for those of you who may not know, a pet nat is a type of sparkling wine. It's actually technically, I'm going to say this wrong, pétillant naturel, which is basically a natural form of sparkling wine. The champagne that you buy in the store is more of, it's also natural, but it's made a different way, and it's also only made in France, so in the US it's called sparkling wine. But at home, I've thought for the last couple of years that making a pet nat would be easier, and let me tell you why. So when you bring grapes home, the minute they come off the vine, it's like you got to do something with them, which seems fairly obvious, but unless you have a cooler that's huge, you have to use them right away. So you have two choices. You can make a white wine. Let's say this is made with red grapes, so it's pink. So it's pink, but this is technically a white wine. Or you can make a red wine. This is my very first one I've ever made, and that's very, very dark. And that means that the grapes have skin contact. Either way, when you do this, there's a lot of, you know, processing involved. And when you're doing home winemaking, which is where these come from, it's a challenge. When I started making home wine, I would have loved a series like this to just guide me through kind of what I actually have in stock, what I need, how to actually do it. So the reason I want to make a pet nat, there's a lot of reasons. And first, I guess I'll tell you the challenges right off the top of my head of making wine at home, okay? First is the access to, at least in my case, the proper space to process. That's not going to be solved with the pet nat, but at least there's a little bit less cleanup later. The other thing is access to lab services, which maybe in other places you have a place you can ship off your numbers you might need. But with a pet nat, basically, I can do all of the analysis in my kitchen myself. And the analysis is important in any winemaking or fermentation, honestly. But for me, the only thing I'm really monitoring here is going to be fermentation. I'll be able to talk more about this in the next video. I have, you know, we're going to talk about what we actually need to do this project. But the main reason I like it is just because it's a very natural form of winemaking, so I don't plan on using very much sulfur at all. And sulfur is basically used for microbial use, or if you're aging your wines, like all of these home wines all had sulfur added to them right before bottling to preserve them. And so with the pet nat, you don't need to do that. It's just more of a natural style of wine. You essentially ferment the juice until it's almost dry. And then basically you seal it and then it ferments in the bottle. So it's a sparkling wine made naturally, which is where the name comes from. So for me, this is the perfect cross point for home winemaking. I also make wine professionally, and so during this time I'm extremely busy. And maybe for you, replace it with maybe you have 3 kids, or maybe you work 3 jobs, whatever. Like, this is a project that I feel like will be manageable. So that's my goal with this wine, is to make a home wine that I feel like isn't an overwhelming experience for me, even though at the end of the day I love it. I just want to make the best wine I can given my home winemaking shortcomings. While my main thing is winemaking, I've always wanted to get more into other types of fermentation. I've got books on books, and I've got lots of friends who do all sorts of kombuchas and pickling of vegetables, and for me, something I haven't made the time for yet. So for me with this channel, there's a whole bunch of stuff I want to do. I want to get into sake. I want to do different types of kombucha. I've got my SCOBY already. I'm getting ready for that. Pickled vegetables of all sorts. Stick around, check back here, and I'll be exploring more types of fermentation, getting a little crazy, doing stuff I've never done. Maybe if you have anything you want to watch or see me do, feel free to comment here. This is my first time doing this, so I just want to test out what I can do. Cheers until next time. It's so hard.
That's great.